Well, I'm excited to introduce a friend of mine today named Megan. Megan was in my Bible study group this year, and I had a chance to get to know her well. And as she shared a little bit of her story, I said, I think that would be such a great thing to share with others, because even though I've never been through what she's been through, perhaps your children or grandchildren or even yourself have gone through some of what she's been through. So I'm excited for her to share her story today. Hold her up in prayer. I told her we're all just nice grandmas and grandpas, that she doesn't need to be afraid, but you know how it is when you speak in a group, so smile a lot. Okay, come on, Megan.
So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Megan Sooth. I tend to hide out in the church nursery a lot. I work over there with a lot of the little ones. I have 3 wonderful children. You might know me from them too, because they are very loud on campus. I have a 6-year-old Logan, and then a 3-year-old daughter, Kara, and then a 1-year-old Brennan. And they are crazy, but they are so fun, and I love them so much. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna put that right there.
Is that too high?
No, that's perfect. That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you guys are wonderful. Oh, there goes my chair. My chair. No, it's okay. No, I'm good. I'm just kidding. So, like I said, I went over this speech a lot of times, and because I struggle with control. I don't know if anyone here has that problem, but I feel I'm a control freak, and I need the control over most of my situations. And so God likes to throw a lot of curveballs at me to keep me guessing and keep me on my toes. I am a passenger seat driver. You can ask my husband. He will tell you that. And I tend to let God take the wheel, but I like to be right next to him and direct him the way that I want him to go. So I'll say, like, okay, God, you want me to go there. Well, but I have a plan. And I expect him to listen. I assume he's going to listen to my advice. And I am very grateful that he hasn't, because the path that I've wanted to go and the path that he's led me have been 2 very different paths. And so I am blessed that God has taken the wheel, and he has guided me. Even through some really rough storms, I have been able to maneuver them with God's help. So I have a really hard time with conditionally surrendering to his will. I heard that the other day, and I was like, oh, that's a really good way of putting it, where I'm like, God, I will go wherever you take me, but this is the way I want to go, and you're not going to do anything else. Because I will never do those things. I know you'll never put me through those things, because I couldn't survive through those things. And he has taken a lot of those nevers and changed them into yes. That's what you're going to do. It has happened my entire life. I remember in high school, I was thinking, I am going to go to, I had a dream. I was going to Cal Poly. I got in. I got really good grades. I was going to be a music major. I was going to make it. And he said, no, you are going to Chico State, and you are going to be a sports medicine major. And so that was just a really turn that I was not expecting. Another big one is my husband and I had always talked about he can't have a desk job, because he was like, I can never do a desk job. We were in the military, or he was in the military. He had active jobs his entire life, and he was like, there's no way I could do a desk job. And somehow he is now the project manager at Marshall Hospital doing a desk job. It's God's plan. When we got married, we talked about how we were going to school our kids. And I said, we are never going to homeschool, because I cannot homeschool my children. I know I cannot do it. I am now we are going into our 3rd year of homeschooling with one of the charter programs here. And we will never go back, because we are in love with it. I have learned so much about myself. I have learned so much about my son. Our relationship has just blossomed so much. And so it's just all of those nevers becoming possible, because even though I don't think I can do it, God knows that I can do it, just with a little help from him. Another big one was a few years ago, I had a friend that had a miscarriage. And I remember thinking, God is never going to put me through that, because I could never live through that. And I suffered a miscarriage in January of this year. which was really hard for me. But God blessed me through that. He showed me so much love through this church. I had so much support that I had never seen before in all of the trials that I had had in my life. And it was amazing how I was able to walk through that because I had just all of this support and I could see God's love. It was so palpable to me. It was amazing. And the never that I'm going to talk about today, the biggest one is I remember when I was in middle school, and I remember thinking I could never have an eating disorder. I could never have an eating disorder because I love food too much. And I know that God, that's never going to be in my path. And when I was 17, I was diagnosed with anorexia. That was a real struggle, and that was something that I struggled with for a long time. And something that people don't realize with eating disorders is that they are all about the control. That goes back to the control that I was talking about earlier. It has everything to do with the control and nothing to do with the food. The food is how it is manifests, the food is the behaviors, but as far as the actual eating disorder, it is all about the control. When you don't feel like anything else in your life is in control, that is the thing that you hold on to because everything else feels out of control. And that's exactly where I was in my life. I felt like I didn't have anything else to hold on to. I was really depressed. I thought about suicide a few times. Nothing that I ever followed through with, but I was, like I said, I struggled with perfectionism. I had OCD tendencies. I had severe anxiety. I was having panic attacks all of the time. I had this desperate need to for everyone else to approve of me. And I felt like if I didn't get everyone's approval, including God's, then nobody loved me. Like I felt like that need of approval equaled love. And so I thought that same with God is I had to be perfect because that's the way that I could get approval. And that's the way that people are going to love me. And Satan had really convinced me of that. He had broken me down at a very young age in order for my eating disorder to kind of come in and build me back up. He groomed me, with what you would say, in the way that he wanted. And I was so stuck in that I had no way of getting out. So there's a few points that I just want to mention about eating disorders before I kind of go into my story, because there is mental health disorders in general are so prevalent in today's culture, but they are so misunderstood. And we are getting to know them a lot better, but they are still something that we don't understand a lot about. And so I've known so many people with so many different mental health disorders, and they can't get the help that they want because people don't understand them. They're not educated, and it's like this demon that lives inside of you, and nobody else can see it, and it's frightening. So the first thing that I wanted to say is that eating disorders are not a choice. They're not a need for attention, and like I said, they're not about the food. So what I mean by they're not a choice is that it's not something that I just woke up one day and I was like, I think I'm going to have an eating disorder. Like, I think that's what I'm going to do. And a lot of people believe that high school girls go through this period of time where they have unhealthy eating patterns to fit in with their peers, and then when they go off to college, it goes away and everything's better. But I'm here to tell you that that is not the case at all. I remember so many people would tell me to just eat. They would, why don't you just eat? And I couldn't. I was terrified of what was going to happen if I disobeyed my eating disorder, because I had this abusive relationship with him almost. We learned in treatment to separate ourselves from our eating disorders, and we personalized them. We called them ED for short, just to make it simple. And it was almost like another voice that was inside of you. You had your healthy voice, and then you had your ED voice. And when you are so stuck in your eating disorder, your ED voice is so loud that you are scared of what's going to happen if you don't listen, because it's like an abusive relationship. When I first started engaging in behaviors, I didn't even realize what was happening. It was just a way to get healthy at first. And I remember when I started losing weight, I started getting all these compliments, which I equated to approval, which I equated to love. And so I had Ed starting to tell me, like, look, people are liking you. Like, this is wonderful. If you keep this up, like, they're going to keep, you have to keep it up, because Otherwise, they're not going to love you anymore. And I believed it, because as soon as compliments stopped, I started thinking there's something wrong. There's, nobody loves me anymore. What's going to happen? And I was just in this constant anxiety, a constant need for approval of not everybody else, but from Ed too. Because Ed was, at this point, was the only one that I was getting that approval from. And he, in my mind, was my only advocate, my only friend, because I felt like I had a kind of a rough childhood as far as like my anxiety and stuff, and I had a lot of bullying through school, and so like I was really clinging on to him, and he manipulated me and he isolated me from a lot of my peers for a long time. My friends, I lost friends. I got estranged from family members because they just didn't understand why I was doing this to myself. I remember my dad just yelling at me like, "Do you enjoy doing this to you and you and your mom? Like, do you enjoy this? Do you enjoy seeing us suffer because you are choosing to do this to yourself?" And I just remember thinking, I can't change this. I can't. I'm stuck. And like I said, I was terrified of Ed. I was terrified of what he was going to do if I left him, because I would have nothing if I left him. And that's what he made me believe. He made me believe I had nothing. So it was not a choice, and it was not a call for attention. It was just the need for approval. I needed the approval from everyone else in order to keep going. Another big thing with eating disorders is that they don't discriminate, which means you can't look at someone and know if they're suffering from an eating disorder. Just like, any other mental health disorder, you can't look at someone and see like if they're struggling, because you can't see what's going on inside their brain. And the brain is such a powerful thing, because Satan can just get in there and just get you. I went to treatment with a lot of girls and guys, actually, that they struggled from bulimia, they struggled from binge eating disorders, they struggled from eating disorders not otherwise specified, which is basically when you're not like put into a cookie cutter category. And you could look at them and think like a lot of them were of healthy weight or of over healthy weight according to societal standards. And you could look at them and think that they were fine. But if you talk to them, you could see that the demons that they were facing were just as powerful as the ones that I was. Just because you might have been able to see it a little more clear on someone with anorexia doesn't mean that these people suffering from these other eating disorders, they weren't suffering as well. And it's really sad, because a lot of, especially like bulimia, a lot of girls end up having heart attacks at young ages because they have electrolyte imbalances. The pressure, the stuff that the stress that you put on your heart is not something that you can always see. And I knew of a few people that had died in treatment because they just didn't get the help they needed, because people just didn't understand, because their main goal was to get you physically recovered and then let you on your way. So I physically recovered a lot of times, and then I was sent off, and I quickly relapsed many times. I ended up in multiple treatment facilities. I ended up in an inpatient facility in Berkeley, because, but again, they would get me to a goal weight, and then they would send me home, and then I would relapse. So it lost my faith in treatment, really, because I just, and I would go to a therapist afterwards. I'd go to treatment centers outside of after refeeding, and they would get so impatient with me, because why was I still having these thoughts, and why was I still doing this to myself when I was on the road to recovery? So what was I doing? But I can tell you that Ed was actually a lot louder when I was at higher weights than when I was really into it, because I was disobeying him and I wasn't listening to him. And when I was at a healthy weight, he was like, well, now you have nothing, because nobody is paying attention to you, nobody is approving of you anymore, nobody loves you anymore. And he would be so cruel during those times. And so that's a big thing right there, is like, you just can't look at someone, even if you know that they've been sick and that they've physically recovered. Mental recovery, it takes so much longer. It took me years to mentally recover once I actually stayed at a healthy weight. And like I said, I had a really, I struggled throughout my childhood. I had Satan grooming me at a young age. I did have a Christian background. I did grow up in the church, and I grew up Southern Baptist. And so I did know that Jesus died on the cross to save your sins. I did know that. But I never found a personal relationship with Jesus. And I assumed at a young age that I had to be perfect in order for God to love me. I had to bust my butt to try and get God's approval. I had to serve your community, to serve your family, to serve everybody around you, so God approves of you. And that approval is conditional. It is, if you have to stay perfect in order for God to love you. And I busted my butt for years trying to keep God's approval. And every time I made a mistake, I hated myself. It didn't matter how little of a mistake it was. I had a really unhealthy relationship with my mom growing up because I had that same need for approval from her. And my mom, who I love very much, went through a really rough time when I was a child. She had hyperthyroidism, but it was undiagnosed and it was untreated for many, many years. And so she kind of had a temper. And she was also kind of a control freak before, but she had a bit of a temper, and I tried everything I could to please her. And I had 4 older siblings who did not have this same desire. They were living their lives, and they were doing what teenagers were supposed to do. They were testing boundaries, trying to gain independence, and I was so frustrated with them because they were rocking the boat for my mom. And I was like, anytime she was mad, I would have a mini panic attack anytime she was angry. She never once told me this, that she didn't love me, but every time she was angry, I had to go to her and be like, do you still love me? Do you still love me? And it was, now I can look back at that and say, like, how sad is that? That I didn't, even though she was a wonderful mom, she never made me feel like she didn't love me. I grew up with very loving parents, but Satan had told me of that conditional approval. Like, it's conditional with God, it's conditional with your parents, it's conditional with your friends. You have to be perfect, you have to please them all the time in order for them to still love you. And that need went into school. I tried to constantly I tried to constantly gain approval from teachers and friends. And if things didn't go my way, if I lost control over something, if I didn't get the grade that I was expecting, then I would panic. And I had a lot of kids in school think I was quite weird for that. I was bullied throughout elementary school and middle school and high school, and I got this message that you are worthless. You don't have worth, because I don't know if a kid ever told me that, but again, it was Satan's way of saying they are right and you are wrong. You can't get yourself together. You are a mess. And it got worse when I was in high school. I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And I don't know if any of you know what that is, but it's an autoimmune disease of the intestines. And so you suffer at 15. I was having frequent accidents in the classroom. I was having to plan my life around bathroom visits, and that was really embarrassing for a 15-year-old to have to go through. And that's kind of when I started going down the path of eating disorders, because I went to my GI doctor and she said, well, the good news is you have a mild case so far, and you can treat it with a good diet and proper exercise. And up to that point, I had done a lot of comfort eating and just weird diets with friends, because I hated how I looked, because that's who I was. I hated everything about me. I hated me on the inside. I hated me on the outside. And so I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to look better because I want to be better. And so I started just doing moderate exercise and moderate, it was very healthy. It started off very healthy. And I started losing weight, and I started getting the compliments, and it gave me this empowering feeling. Like, it was addicting. I needed that. And I had to keep going. And by my junior year, I was introduced in chemistry class to calorie counting. So now food was not a nourishment. Food was not nourishment. It was a number to me, and everything had a number. And I knew the calories of everything. It was impressive, but disturbing as well, because you could hold something in front of me and I could tell you exactly what was in it, like exactly the calories. I couldn't tell you if I could tell you if it was healthy or not, but if it was just, and these numbers played in my head all day long, how many calories I burned, how many calories I ate, and that was my life. Just the calorie, and if I was going to lose weight, the number on the scale, that was what made me worth it or not. Is if it was going down. If it went up, I was a complete failure, and I had to engage in all sorts of behaviors in order to make up for it. And it was exhausting for many years. When I got to be a senior in high school. But I didn't even think it was a problem, because when I got to be a senior in high school, I actually had a doctor, one of my family doctor actually, she looked at me and she said, because I was still considered a healthy weight at that point because I had been a little over healthy before, and she looked at me and she said, "You are a success story. Like, you have lost all this weight in such a little time. Like, you are a success story. Like, you are so disciplined." And so medical professionals were telling me that everything was okay. And so Ed reiterated, like, see, it's not a problem. Nobody thinks it's a problem. So, and I had doubts going into that, but when she had said that, like, it just kind of negated all of those doubts. And my parents had heard that, and they were they had been a little concerned, but they were like, you know what, it's a phase. Doctors aren't worried about it. It's not a big deal. And they left me alone. And so it continued until I was at a very, very low weight, and I was very much in danger of going into cardiac arrest. I had a friend who finally went to my school counselor, and she said she needs help. She is not well, and she is going to kill herself. And so this counselor, she talked to me for all of 2 minutes and decided that absolutely there was a problem. And so she went to my parents, who decided that they would take me in to get me diagnosed, and that started years of really not good treatment for me, because, like I said, there was a lot of you need to physically recover. We need to get you back to a healthy weight. They had this weight in mind. You have to get to this weight, which I don't know if any of you know, but everyone is different weights. Like, it's not like you're this height, so you got to be this weight. But that's what they believed, is like, okay, so you are this height, or this tall, so you should be this specific weight, and that's what we got to get you to, and then you're fine. And I quickly relapsed from that, and then that's when I ended up in Berkeley for a month. And then when I came out of that, I tried treatment, but I could not, for the life of me, get it right. I would slip, and then I would feel terrible because I wasn't doing that perfectly, and I lost faith. I lost faith in it. I lost faith in it. I lost faith in God. I thought, God, where are you in this? Where are you when I can't seem to get my act together? And in reality, God was there the whole time, but I wasn't willing to let go of Ed in order to see God. And you know that you can't serve two masters thing. Well, I wanted to let go of the bad that Ed had given me, but keep the good. And with any abusive relationship, you've got to get rid of the whole thing. Like, you can't hold on to the good. And I wasn't willing to trust God to get me through it without Ed. And so I was so angry with God for not helping me, but in reality, he was sitting there going, I can help you if you just let me help you. And so I gave up on treatment. I went to college in Chico, like I said. I moved with my now husband, Colton. We went together. We were just dating at the time. We weren't leading Christian lives. We were both a mess. We both didn't know what we were doing with our lives. And we probably weren't going to make it. We were just like, he didn't grow up in a church, but he was searching for more, and I wasn't willing to leave Ed. And so we just were kind of going with the flow. We were existing, and it was probably to a point where we were going to end it. And one day he comes home and he says, I'm going to join the Air Force, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to marry you, and then you're going to come with me. And I said, okay. And if any of you have ever been a part of military life, talk about no control over what you're doing. So the fact that I was like, okay, this is what we're doing was amazing to me. I was like, I don't know why I'm okay with this, but this is where we're supposed to go, I guess. And so he went off to basic training, and I saw him graduate, and he came home. We got married after I graduated college, and then our honeymoon was spent going to Great Falls, Montana, which is in the middle of nowhere. It was so fun though. It was such an adventure because we started growing together. We both needed to be away from our families. We were both really under the thumbs of our families. My mom was still incredibly concerned because of everything going on with my eating disorder, and his mom was just very didn't believe that he could make it. And so we were the youngest in both families, and so we really needed to go out on our own. And it was the best thing that God could have done for us, because I went there and we grew up. And I remember thinking, I'm going to try treatment one more time. I'm going to try it one more time. You know what? I don't believe in it, but let's see if we can do this. And so there just so happened to be, in this tiny town of Great Falls, Montana, there happened to be a treatment facility. And there was actually the woman who ran it. Her husband was one of the officers on base. Most of the people that worked outside of the base were spouses of the people on base. So it was not a surprise. But I went in there, and oh my gosh, my life changed so much because of this treatment team. They let me be imperfect in treatment. They let me struggle. They let me yell at them. They let me cry. They let me tell them that this wasn't going to work, and they walked me through the entire way. And they encouraged me, even though they weren't Christian-based, they encouraged me to lean into my faith. They said, you have a Christian background, you should take this to God. Like, that is one of your core values. You should take it to God, and you should let Him take control. And, they walked me through my entire first pregnancy. When I got pregnant with my son, Logan, I was terrified because I had for years, I struggled for years with my weight, and gaining weight when all you want to do is lose weight is very difficult. And so they walked me through the entire way. They helped me pay for it. They let me stay in it longer than I was supposed to be in. When I had Logan, I suffered really bad postpartum anxiety, and it was really hard. But they helped me through that. And when my dad died, he died unexpectedly in 2018. I felt like I had lost control there too. And they encouraged me to go to a grief group at one of the local churches. And I went to this grief group, and this grief group they showed me that God doesn't necessarily cause the pain always, but He's always there to walk you through the pain. He's always there to get you through it. He's always there to hold you if you need Him to hold you. And it was this beautiful thing for me, because when I had come home to this broken family after my dad passed, I thought, God, why are you doing this to me? Why would you do this? And so they really taught me like this is why He's doing, there's going to be a blessing on the other side, but you have to just walk through the storm with Him. You have to let Him. The blessing may not be anything that you expected, but He's going to get you through it. And I feel like that's happened so much in my life since that time, because we left Montana in 2019, right before COVID, and we came home here, and I was in a better place with my eating disorder. I was starting to have this relationship with God, and it's coincidentally when I started speaking with God a little bit more and letting Him in, my eating disorder started kind of drifting. Not that He wasn't there; He was still there, and there are times where I still struggle. I'm not going to lie about that. I feel like recovery takes a very, very long time if you ever get fully recovered. But I do feel like I see God a lot more. And so, like I said in the beginning, there's so many times where the control, he takes the control from you, and he takes the wheel, and He says, this is what I'm going to do for you. And it might not be your plan, and it might look really rough, and there might be a lot of storms, but I'm going to take that, and I'm going to make these blessings. And so, like I said, we came home from Montana, and we weren't supposed to be here for very long. We had a place in Oregon already, we had jobs lined up, and everything fell through, and then COVID hit. And it was really a blessing that we didn't end up going before, because it was very devastating for us not to come back to California. We did not want to stay here long term. We were supposed to be here 6 months, and we are 5 years into our 6 month stint. So, our goal is to still leave. But you know what? Whatever God wants at this point. I'm not questioning anything anymore. But yeah, COVID hit, and we kind of got stuck here. But God blessed my husband with a recession-proof job, and he blessed us to be near family, because I had just found out that I was pregnant with my second child, Kara, and so if we'd have left, we would have been with nobody, and it would have just been really, really terrible. And my husband, he's also struggled with a lot of jobs. Like I said, he's wanted to do what he's wanted to do. And then when he finally gave up the control, God somehow miraculously put him into this wonderful job. We struggled for years financially. And God placed him exactly where he needed to be, exactly when we needed him to be there. And all of a sudden, he's in this wonderful job, and he loves what he does, and it's flexible, and it's, family friendly, and it's wonderful. And then as far as last year, I was really sick last year. All of last year, I was incredibly sick. I had an emergency appendectomy at the beginning of the year. I had a really bad ulcerative colitis flare-up after that. I had to change medication after medication, and I was trying to take back the control. We had planned to have our fourth child, and I thought we're gonna make this happen. And so even though I was really sick when I got pregnant, I thought that's what I wanted to do. This is when I needed to be pregnant. And I lost the baby in January, like I said. And I feel like that was God's way of just protecting me and saying, you weren't ready. You weren't healthy, and I need you to be healthy. And then about a month or so later, I found out I was pregnant again. And I remember at first being so angry with God for doing that to me, because the only thing that I could think about was, this pregnancy is going to end just like the last one did. Why would you do this to me? I was still very, very much grieving the loss of my fourth, and I didn't want to be pregnant. It was very, very unexpected. And I have struggled a lot with that. I am now almost 18 weeks pregnant, and I have struggled a lot with that knowledge, because I've still tried to recover, mentally from the last loss, and I still wake up every morning thinking, well, this is it. This is when this isn't going to be done. This isn't going to happen anymore. And I have struggled so much with control over just the last 2 years with the health that I have been facing. I feel like Satan is just kind of just throwing it at me. He's trying to make me break, and I have never thought more about starting to engage back in eating disorder behaviors, because that was the comfort that I had. That was the comfort that I could control. And I think the biggest thing that I've been blessed with in all of this is that I have a church home now, which is huge. So when we came home and we got stuck here from COVID, we started coming to Foothills. And that was a blessing to us, because my husband didn't grow up in the church. I grew up in a church, but not a church family. And it was amazing how much love that we felt here, and how much love that my kids have felt here. It's amazing hearing them every time we drive by on the freeway. There's our church. It's really, I love hearing that. I love when they get so excited. They love coming to church. We're going to church today, and that just warms my heart, because I never had that. And so I see all of these blessings that God has given me. And yes, I am still struggling with things. Like I said, this pregnancy, and there's so much in our lives that right now that are just up in the air. Little stressors, big stressors. It's a stressful world. But I know I can look back at every single time that there has been these huge events, these traumatic things, these storms that I've walked through, and God has blessed us every single time. He has made it to where we get to the other side, and I'm thinking, why was I worried about that? God led us through that, and I just can't get enough of that. It's amazing how many times He has blessed us. Yet I still, need the control. I still go back to, to the beginning where I get to the end. I'm like, I'm going to let God take the control this time. I'm going to let God take the control. And then when he throws another curveball, I'm back in craziness. But, I love God's plan more than my plan. And I'm learning very slowly to let him take the wheel and just kind of sit in the passenger seat. So, I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if anyone here struggles with control at all, but I hope that you guys are able to do that too. I hope you guys are able to see the blessings that God gives you through the storms and the stressors. And I hope you guys are able to let go of some of that control too, because it's hard, but I think it's worth it. So, thank you.